morning.
Good morning.
It's still morning time.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful way to start my day. I've been in Philadelphia now. This is my 11th year here. I remember, I'm a native New Yorker. I always tell people it should be obvious. I have the New York hubris, right? There are places like New York. But I love Philadelphia. And I remember the first time I drove around Rittenhouse Square, probably about 12 years ago, before we even knew we were going to relocate from North Carolina as a Duke before I got here. And I saw the sign out front, Ethical Society. So I'm going to have to make sure I find out what they're doing there. And I remember initially when we got back to Durham, I checked it out. I said, oh, fascinating stuff. I have to make sure I reconnected, or connected once with them. 11 years later. But I'm so glad I am here. So thank you for the invitation. Hopefully this will be the beginning of a more substantive series of conversations. So I'm Dean of Penn's School of Social Policy and Practice. We colloquially call it Penn's Social Justice School. It's not as famous as Wharton, say. But we are in the world, we're in the community doing what we think is important social justice work. Our students span out all over the city. And when I became dean, now it's almost 3 years ago, one of the first things I did is I just tried to go to some of the field placement sites where our students get training in the world. And they're all over. They're doing juvenile justice, they're doing mass incarceration stuff, we're working in high schools, in elementary schools. And I remember there was this one high school principal who was probably the third visit I made during my first semester as dean. And I remember going to his office, and I was blown away by the way he described his role in the lives of these young people. And it's kind of where I want to start. So basically, so I'm trained as an anthropologist, which I tell people is just a fancy way to say I tell stories about what it means to be human. So I have 3 stories for you. And the first one began in this high school principal's office, where he sat me down and told me, I don't know you very well, Dean Jackson, but I want you to understand how I approach my work here. You've seen where the school's located in Northeast Philadelphia. They call our kids at-risk kids. The poor. Often they don't get food in the morning before they come in. There are all these cliches I can give you about how and why their life is different. But he said the first thing I learned was that I can't do my job. I can't teach them writing, math. I can't get them to think about civics and social studies unless I first can convince them, prove to them that I love them. He said if I don't do that, if I really don't do that persuasively, I don't have a chance at teaching these kids. He said not only that, there's not a single person I will hire in this building, not someone to mop the floor, distribute food, teach them in one of these subject areas. I won't hire anyone who doesn't convince me that they love these young people. And I was so blown away because I'd spoken to other principals at the time, and I know how principals think about their job. And I'd never heard a principal really frame the project, the educational project, about being first and foremost getting these kids to understand that they're loved in a full, wholesome way. I was blown away. But that isn't even why I got chills when I left that school building. I got chills because after we were done with that, it couldn't have been more than 30 minutes of us talking about how he approaches his job as principal, how sacredly he treats his specific role in the lives of these young people. He then set me on my way to take a tour of that building with just the young people, just the high school students. And within 5 seconds, first time we turned a corner, I could tell they really felt loved. And the reason why, to me, that was so powerful, it was because just the semester before, I had taken a group of University of Pennsylvania undergraduates. I'm also a filmmaker, so we do a lot of work in film. And we had this bright idea of having our Penn students work with local high school students, a different high school, on a film project over the course of the entire academic semester. And this was a heavy lift for everyone. And so the young people in the class, the first session was about going to the Philadelphia high school that we chose and having them speak to the young people and learn a little bit about what that high school was like. And the theme of the film that we were going to make was all about public education in Philadelphia. So how do we do a documentary film about public education collaborating with the high school students? And what was so striking was that after that first session in that high school, when we brought the University of Pennsylvania students back to Penn's campus, it was almost as though we had to do an intervention with the students. Because they were traumatized. And at the time, okay, this is before I met with the principal, so I didn't even think about it in these terms, but what was happening at that moment was that they were engaging young people who had already decided they didn't believe we were serious. That they didn't trust we were going to be there for the long haul and really committed to them. And these were young people who, unlike the young people I met in that subsequent high school, who didn't believe anyone cared about them, who had done a pretty good analysis of the contemporary social moment and realized if they did, we wouldn't be in this situation. If someone really cared about us, we wouldn't be here. And so it took us a long time as a university community, group of students making a film with these young people, to even begin to get them to believe that we were going to be able to not just work together, but work together in a way that actually indexed our commitment to them as human beings. I feel like we were successful. The film, we did finish a film 50 minutes long, and it was spectacular. Very powerful, very moving, some of it very sad. But why I like that story is because it always reminds me that there's something about the power of affect that, especially as academics, we tend to minimize. So I'm someone who, I study race, and for a whole bunch of reasons, I think it's an interesting idea or concept to think with. There's so many wonderful ways in which it's a good representation of what we do, what we produce as cultural beings in the world. So we do a lot of work on race. And one of the first things I tell any student in almost any class is that the trap we fall into to begin with is to imagine we can simply intellectualize ourselves out of the bind we've created around race and difference. That if we just have the best argument, right, if we cogitate really carefully, if we reason it out, we'll have to win the day. And what we also have to recognize is the reason why this category, like all the really most potent cultural categories that we treat preciously, is so important to us. Because it's not just in our heads, it's in our guts. It's in our hearts in a way. There's something about how we engage with the world that's never simply about our capacity to reason. Doesn't mean we dismiss that. But it means we have to think about what reasoning gets us and what the remainder is, what's left behind. I think the question of culture is a nice way to play with some of those remainders, some of the aspects of how we produce life that aren't simply about our ability, our capacity to think deeply and thoughtfully. And race, I think, is one of those wonderful examples. There was, over 100 years ago, someone who did a lot of work in Philadelphia, W.E.B. Du Bois, this sort of really powerful and oft-quoted phrase. It was a question. It was a question he used to organize his own relationship as a social scientist to the question of race in America. The question was simply, how does it feel to be a problem? How does it feel to be a problem? Now, part of what most academics do when they reinvoke that particular query is to focus on the second half of the question, the problem part. To try to unpack it, to try to operationalize it. What is the problem we're talking about? How do we measure it? Whether we're economists, sociologists, or political scientists, it's always how do we make sense of this notion of the problem? What is the problem? That's an important question to ask. But there's a version, I would argue, of what's really powerful about what he's trying to do in that query that's about the first half. How does it feel to be a problem? How does it feel? For the young people we were engaging in that high school, they felt like a problem. They felt like they weren't loved. And that particular starting point made it difficult for them to do any of the other things we imagine they're just supposed to do as a matter of course as high school students in the public school in Philadelphia. And so the idea for me is, how do we get people to unlearn some of what we take for granted about this concept of race? And then if we're successful, what do we put in its place? What do we put in its place? And so for me, that gets me to a version of what I think is sort of the second story I want to tell you. So it's simply a story about kind of how we think about the simple distinction between us's and them's. How do we do that? One of the ways we've been talking about this in our school, in policy practice, is to say, is there a way we can teach students to love better? Now, so our students imagine they're coming to the University of Pennsylvania Social Justice School because they want to find the tools they need to make the world a better place. It sounds very Pollyannish, but that's it. They're not trying to make money. They wouldn't come to us if they were trying. They'd go around the corner. There's another building there where you can make a lot of money. They come to us because they feel like they want to figure out a way to help make this world a better place. And they need conceptual tools. They need to know what the methods they might deploy could be to affect the kind of change they want, to produce a future they'd like to inhabit that's more just, that's more fair, that's more inclusive. And so one of the things we try to figure out is there a way to get them to actually understand that part of what we're trying to impart to them is a version of what it means to love that does more good than harm. Because in some ways, part of what race represents and what any invocation of a love affect tends to represent is not simply a warm, cuddly, sort of beautiful way of thinking about commonality in relationships. It's that. But it's also a way to draw a really sharp, hard, and fast line between the folks we really love and the others who threaten our loved ones. So depending on how you draw that concentric circle, how wide the circumference is, you can determine a lot about how you understand the world, the kind of policy recommendations you would imagine you'd make, the ways you interact across all kinds of political and cultural and social fault lines. Because often the us you produce, the us we all produce, is an incredibly impoverished one. It almost seems to get smaller every day. And so we invoke love. I think we invoke love all the time. But we often do it in a way that ends up defining the lines of demarcation between the folks we protect and the people we will do anything to destroy if they bother us and hurt the people we care about. So we've been thinking, is there a way to get our young people to actually think about love more expansively? Can you even teach that? Is that something you can teach? If you can, where do you go? Who are the theorists you use? What's the field placement site you immerse students into to give them this sense of this more large, expansive notion of loving? For me, one of the ways in which I try to get people to understand, just for me, how incredible it is to use love, to deploy love as a way to talk about not sort of superficial ideas, but really the most fundamental core beliefs that we think about, is I go back to some of the field work I did as a PhD student in New York City. And I remember that for a lot of the folk, I worked in Harlem for a good chunk of the time when I was in grad school, and really my project was about looking at how Harlemites, mostly African Americans, well, not exclusively so, this is all pre-gentrification as well, so it was a different demographic in Harlem than now, but how Harlemites, mostly African Americans, talked about class differences within the black community. So when I was a grad student, one of the claims was that race was such an all-encompassing construct, especially for African Americans, that it didn't even leave any space aside for folks to really critically engage class. You couldn't see class. Didn't have a language for class because race was so paramount. So I said, well, is that true? If I go in Harlem and talk to folks about how they think about sociality, how they form commonalities, is class something they can spy or not? And one of the things I found was not only did Harlemites have a very robust language for class differences, But the Harlemites I spoke to all across the class spectrum invoked class all the time. Even when talking about seemingly innocuous kinds of performances and interactions. That indeed anything, and almost everything, had some sort of class implication. Folks are constantly trying to determine what can I learn about your class position as a function of the way you talk, the way you walk, the clothes you wear. And so for me, it was a really powerful way to understand not simply that it's an either or zero-sum model, either race is paramount or class is, but people are constantly integrating these categories and thinking about them at one and the same time. Some of the researchers who work on this stuff say they're articulated categories, that you only understand any of the grocery list of things we think that define us by understanding how they're intertwined with all the others. There's this fantasy I think we have. We have a lot of fantasies. Some of them allow us to sleep well at night, I think. But there's this fantasy we have, especially academics who imagine we won the argument. Not everyone would agree, but some of us think we won the argument that race isn't biologically real. You might still be committed to it, right? You might have a political project linked to it. But when you're talking about DNA, you're talking about genes, you're talking about blood and bones, there is no race there the way you think there is. So it's bad biology. That's what we anthropologists have been arguing for a long time. And somebody is doing penance for the fact that anthropologists in the late 19th century, and early 20th century, dressed up this vernacular category and made it seem like science. Made it seem biologically real. Now we're trying to undo that and say, okay, we kind of got that wrong. But what I think is really powerful about this moment is we realize that even if we imagine we're saying race is a social construction, simply invoking that all by itself doesn't inoculate us from some of the most pernicious ways in which we deploy these cultural categories. One of the figures who I think is a powerful instantiation of what I mean, I'll just take 2 seconds to talk about him, is this guy named Leo Felton. Has anyone heard of this name, Leo Felton? Well, you might not have. He got famous in about 1999 in Boston, Massachusetts, because he was arrested. He was caught trying to pass off counterfeit bills. It was part of this really large counterfeiting operation. But that wasn't why it became national news. Once they caught him, they realized that what they were using those counterfeit bills to do was to finance this sort of neo-Nazi project, this attempt to blow up Jewish monuments all around Boston, Massachusetts. That's what they were trying to do. They were trying to fundraise for that effort. Really pernicious. But that isn't even why the journalists went crazy. Once they started to talk to him in the prison, they realized that Leo Felton was passing for white. He was one of these loved children of the 1960s, black father, white mother, had all kinds of issues with his black bus driver dad, but he was, by American standards, not pure white. Now, he was passing not just to the outside world, to other folks who had no connection to his compatriots, he was passing in the neo-Nazi group. And he wasn't passing in the group because he was doing some expose for Vanity Fair or for the New Yorker. No, he said he knew he had to pass for Southern Italian. That's how he framed it. Because the other neo-Nazis in his community were what he called racial materialists. They thought that race was in your blood and your bones. And he said, that's not where it is. I know that. I'm enlightened enough to know that, he said. But I realized they didn't. So I had to protect myself because they wouldn't have been very happy with my own particular pedigree. And now, why is that interesting? It's interesting, I think, because this is when somebody's got the memo about race's lack of biological realness, but still was able to deploy it to do some of the most, or try to attempt to do some of the most heinous things we could do. So what does that tell us? I think it tells us a couple of things. I'm sure other things, but the ones I'll focus on. I wrote a book not too long ago, what I call racial paranoia. And part of the point is really to say that even the idea of racial paranoia is kind of already redundant. Because embedded in the notion of race itself is paranoia and fear. This idea that someone is so different some community is so other that the only way to respond is to protect ourselves against their influx and to fight them tooth and nail if there's any way, shape, or form we might imagine they're making any incursion on our resources or our people. And there's a logic, there's an argument that says, well, the moment when race became, in its current instantiation, most dramatically about othering was when we moved from a moment where we had differences, but the project was to say, you're different from me, and my goal is going to be to make you like me, to make you the same way that I am, right? And we can do that any number of ways. Conversion might be one. Clearly, cultural assimilation. But the idea in this early iteration is there's difference. But our project, maybe an imperial project, maybe a colonial project, maybe not a justifiable project, but it's one that actually fundamentally says we can breach that difference. We can actually counteract that distinction by making you more like us. Right? And that's one version of a project. It can be a very violent project. It can be a very dastardly undertaking. But I would argue it's a different premise than one that says that you're so different that even if I tried, even if we worked our hardest, there's no way you could be like us. It's not in your bones. Or a higher power didn't make you with the capacity to do what we do. And there's this switch from this notion of difference as something we can actually, quote unquote, fix. Which again, isn't necessarily a better way to think about it. It's just one that says the categorical distinction isn't one that absolutely can only ever simply be policed. And so when we think about race and paranoia, I often go back to those same folks I studied with in Harlem when I was a PhD student, who almost down to a person would tell me, especially if they were a little older, that they could not wait to save up a little bit of money. And when they had the time, the energy, they were going to move either back down to the South, where they came from, or move to the South for the first time. And when you would ask them why they would do that, why they would want to go to the South, why they would pine for the South, what do you think their answer would be? What do you think?
They knew where they stood.
It's exactly that. This idea that at least in the South, you know who likes you and who doesn't as a function of race, right? And then there was this idea that the good guys wore the white hats, the bad guys wore the black hats, and you didn't have this existential uncertainty about whether or not you could trust what people are saying in a kind of quote-unquote politically correct environment. Now, mind you, this analysis was all pre-who? Pre-Trump, right? So I have to go back to the drawing board and analytics because I think there's a different way in which we're invoking and thinking about some of the stuff that used to feel like it was so adamantly euphemized in the public sphere that's making a very different kind of reemergence. But even now, when we imagine that there's a whole bunch of excitement in certain racialized nationalist circles linked to questions about racial superiority, even now, what we have to remember is we're in a republic. It's only been for the most 45, 50 years at the most, where you couldn't be unabashedly racist. There was a time when people ran their political platforms on racism. And we often want to imagine that past is so far in the past that it has no bearing on the present. And even without discussion about what kinds of communities feel empowered as a function of the new presidential regime, I think the key question is, how do we think about the love we produce? And what does that love, and really this is where I'll end in the final story I'll tell, what does this love, who does this love allow us to see? Ralph Ellison wrote a book called Invisible Man. And in that, he starts by saying simply, I am an invisible man. No, I'm not a spook. Boo. Like those that haunted Edgar Allan Poe. Nor am I one of your Hollywood movie actors. I'm a man of substance, flesh and bone, fiber and liquids. And I might even be said to possess a mind. I'm invisible, understand, simply because people refuse to see me. Well, they approach me, they do. But when they do, they see only my surroundings or themselves, or worse. They see figments of their own imagination. They see anything. Everything. Except me. Now, I'm not complaining, nor am I protesting. You see, sometimes it's advantageous to be unseen. But other times it gets quite taxing on the nerves. You go around getting bumped against by people with poor vision, and you begin to doubt whether you do exist in the real world, whether you're a part of all the sound and the anguish, and you lash out with your fists and you curse and you swear to make people recognize you. But alas, you're seldom successful. That, my friends, is the real soul sickness. The spear in the side. The drag by the neck to the mob angry crowd. The grand inquisition. The embrace of the maiden. The rip in your belly with your guts just spilling out. The trip to the chamber with the gas. So hygienically clean, but it's worse. Because you can't die. You have to go on living. Stupid. But live you must, I guess, and you can either make passive love to your sickness or burn it out. And go on to the next perverted phase. But what is that next phase? How often I've tried to find it. So like everyone else, I've gone above to search it out. I believe in progress. And I believe in action. But after being for your society and then against it, I assign myself no rank, nor any merit. Instead, my world is one of infinite possibilities. What a phrase, infinite possibilities. It's a good phrase, and a good view of life. And a good man shouldn't have any other. You step outside the narrow confines of what men call reality, and you can step into chaos or imagination. And that too I've learned down here myself. And I haven't learned it by deadening my own sense of perception. Oh no. For I'm invisible, but I'm not blind. There's a version of what race does that blinds us. Culture actually blinds us. In some ways that's okay. That's how we're built as a species. It's part of what defines us as a species. Star Trek has this society called the Borgs. I don't know if you all know, do science fiction. And the Borgs are incredibly powerful because they can communicate in this almost angelic way with no miscommunication, no mediation. They know exactly what one another believes. You can't get something wrong. You can't misconstrue it. Often we fantasize about that kind of perfect communication. If only we didn't, put our foot in our mouth, right? If only we found a better way to say it so someone didn't misinterpret what we meant. There's a version of what it means to be human that actually is about that miscommunication, about the fact that we can't do it perfectly. Actually, to be human means we can keep secrets from one another. It demands a kind of trust across difference that really takes a lot of work and effort. But I want to argue, and I'll sit down on this note, that part of what I find so incredibly powerful about the simple language of love is because we know when we're operating in that sphere, whether it's, agape love, love for everyone, romantic love, familial love, all the ways we think about the caring and affect we have for other people. What we're doing in that moment is we're simply trying to trust and believe. We have to. We don't know. We can't split the other person open and know for sure that when they say, I love you, they mean it. We think maybe we can use actions to figure it out. There's empirical evidence of whether or not they do. We also know after 25 years of marriage, someone can one day say, you know what? I don't. And I'm going to go. Well, they can decide that, well, I loved you before, but I don't now. And there's so much about what love demands of us as humans is about actually being vulnerable to one another. There's a lot of danger there, but there's not another option, I would argue. And race becomes one version of how we pretend we don't need vulnerability. It's a shortcut to certainty. To say, if you look and sound some way, gender and sexuality, you look and sound this other way, religion, you believe in this capacity, then I don't even have to think about it. I see you before you open your mouth. I know you before I even know you. That might feel good. It might allow us, again, to sleep well at night. But it's simply pretending away the inevitable, which is for our social community to work, for the fabric of our society to do what it has to do to keep us all together. We're always vulnerable. And we always have to trust and believe. So for our students, we always tell them, you're going to be in the field and people are going to disappoint you. And the young people you're working on, the formerly incarcerated citizens you're trying to reintegrate into the community are sometimes not going to live up to what you imagine to be your ideal for how they operate. Can't predict it all the time. Even with data analytics and big data, all these ways, our job is trying to be looking for the holy grail. How do we know what's going to happen tomorrow? Often what we have to do is just trust and believe and connect. And so what I really want to say is thank you all for allowing me for maybe too long, to trust and connect with you all. I hope, if nothing else, you know that there is a place at the University of Pennsylvania where we're thinking about this stuff, trying to get students to operationalize this stuff in ways that mean something for the people they interact with, and that aren't simply business as usual for our students. I feel like sometimes we get it really right. I always tell them I love them every single day, and that I wouldn't do this job if I didn't. So I'll tell you too, I love you. Thank you for having me here, and hopefully we can keep the conversation.